You're listening to WMPG 90.9 Gorham, Portland, Southern Maine Community Radio from USM. Live from the Orion Cygnus arm of the Milky Way galaxy, this is Scientifically Speaking, a weekly half-hour program devoted to elegant curiosities, and I am one of your hosts, Sarah Chang, and joining me as always is Bernie Rhyme, DJ Starwatcher. How are you, Bernie?
Yes, hi, Sarah. Very good, thank you.
Bernie's our professor of the astronomy lab here at USM and our local protector of the night skies. Reach out to us at WMPG Scientifically Speaking at gmail.com or on Twitter at WMPG SciSpeak, and you can head over to WMPG.org to find the last 5 weeks of archives of all of your favorite shows, including this one. Today's episode of Scientifically Speaking, we've got a very special guest right here from USM, from the campus of USM, and it's actually, we have a student from Bernie, one of your classes. Bernie, could you do the honors of introducing her?
Yes, certainly. Her name is Kaitlyn Wilcox, and I found out while doing the labs that she was actually going to a dog sled race in northern Maine up in Fort Kent to do some search and rescue. So I thought that was interesting, and I was hoping you would say yes when I would ask you to be on the show, because we're always looking for interesting new people every single week. So you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, Kaitlyn. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure to be here. So I started doing search and rescue in Fort Kent around 2015, I think. We actually started it because my dad's boss is the coordinator for search and rescue up there, and said that he needed some volunteers, and my dad was like, "Oh, sign us up." So we go up every year now, except for last year because COVID. So we run 3 safety stations up there, and we are the only unit up there that runs more than 1 safety station. What is a safety station? It's different than a checkpoint. A checkpoint is like they're mandatory stops, and there's help there, like food and all that. At a safety station, there's no food. You don't stop, you just pass through. We're just monitoring their speed to make sure they're not lost. So for example, at my safety station, I run all communications and on the radio. So I radio from my safety station to Central, which is Central. It is where they keep track of everyone's times, where they are, and there's actually GPS tracking now just for the 250 mile hour race, not the 30 and the 100 race. So that's kind of nice, because then we can see they're 3 miles out. We can know how to, get ready. Mm-hmm. So I will radio. It's all military time, which is hard sometimes, but I'll radio to Central that, bib number 19 is through at 1427, and I'll make sure they get it. And then this year, actually, a team got through a safety station because they weren't paying attention, and then they came through us, and they're like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, but they're safe. They're good. We did not have to do any rescues this year. There was a rescue in the 100-mile race. What happened was there's actually an article on it. It's very interesting. His lead dog was in heat, and his other dogs were getting distracted by her no matter where they moved her around, or the other lead dog. So the musher himself ended up being the lead dog. So then he ended up passing out from dehydration.
Oh.
Yeah. But he was only a mile from the safety station, and he wasn't there long. But everyone's good. Dogs are good. Musher's good. So very proud of the Can-Am team to get to him and get him help.
Yeah.
That's what we're there for.
Wow. So in case, let's back up a little bit, because just in case, our listeners have no idea about this Can-Am race. So you've kind of identified a few kind of key parameters of the race, right? There's the 30 mile. Was it a 30 or 25?
So there's
30
3
mile?
races. There's 30 mile, 100 mile, and 250 mile.
Okay. And then you have a musher, and how many dogs?
So it's different for each race. For the 30, I believe it's 6, and then 100, I think, is 8 to 10, and then the 250, you have to start with 12 dogs, and I think you have to end with at least 10.
Ooh, okay. Interesting. And so if you lose a dog, do you just like put them on the pack, or like do you carry them back, or what does it mean to lose a dog?
So you can, what they call drop dogs, there's actually a unit that goes around
Oh,
like picking up the dogs and then bringing them back to wherever their handler is for their team. And their handler is just like they handle everything for the
gotcha.
musher.
Okay.
You can't drop a dog at a safety station. You can only drop them at a checkpoint.
Interesting. Okay. And then going back to that story about the guy who was the lead dog, how does he become a lead dog? He's just strapped himself in and he starts running?
Yep, that's pretty much how it went.
Wow.
To
So,
run as fast as a dog.
yeah, I mean, that says a lot about how important that lead dog is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I mean, I don't know all of their like responsibilities, but I guess if they're in heat, it's confusing them because what is she doing? That's
I don't know if it has to do with scent or something,
okay.
maybe.
Interesting. Okay, so going back to the search stations, that's what you
Yeah,
call them, right?
safety station.
Safety stations.
Hmm.
So you've got three set up in the 250 race, and
Well,
then oh
so there's 9 safety stations
oh
total,
okay,
but we run 3 of them.
gotcha. So there's multiple groups of you.
Yes.
I see. And so are you guys all just like private like organizations that are kind of doing this?
It's all volunteer based.
Interesting. So there's 9 safety stations and how many checkpoints?
I believe in the 250-mile, there is at least 4 or 5.
Okay, 4 or 5. And then so you're able to track people by GPS, right?
Yes,
Or
just for the 250-mile race.
okay. And then when you say like as they come through, you're kind of radioing to central, like, oh, this team has come through. It's this time, right? That's what you're doing.
Yep.
Is that just how you guys kind of track their speed and generally kind of where they might be at
Yeah,
any
it's just a
given point?
safety thing,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so how do you actually know at what point are you like, hey, we haven't seen this team? Like, what is the cutoff time?
So, for example, when they leave Portage, which is a checkpoint, they're
Mm-hmm.
coming to us at Safety Station 4. And we know it takes about 2 hours for the better teams to come from Portage to Safety Station 4. So we know like what teams are going to do it in 2 hours and what teams are going to do it in like 3.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's been like 45 minutes, an hour past the time we expected them, then we'll radio central and ask them if they want us to go out, because we're not supposed to just go out unless central asks us to.
Okay. Okay. Could you maybe talk about a rescue that you had to do in the past?
So a couple of years ago, actually, we she's not allowed to run the race anymore, actually. I know,
Uh-oh.
but everything was good, but it was going on like 4 or 5 hours she should have been there. So Central's like, yeah, go out and find her. So we went out and found her. She was fine. Her dogs were just so tired. And
Mm.
mind you, it was like 30 degrees that year, and they're used to running in negative temperatures. They like the cold.
Mm-hmm.
So they were exhausted. So it really wasn't like an extreme rescue. We just brought them back, got the dogs Gatorade, which is really good for them, and got them good, and then got Jake, which is the coordinator, to come in with dogs, like truck dogs, dog trucks,
Oh,
and
okay.
so they could haul them out. So it wasn't like an extreme rescue like they had this year.
Yeah.
which is good. We don't want to rescue people if we don't have to, but we're
Yeah.
there for them.
And were you able to find her just by retracing the trail, or
Yep.
did you
So
have
we
to
go
use
out on snowmobile
Oh,
down the
okay.
trail, and
Okay.
then we find them.
Do you go alone on snowmobile, or are you in teams?
Well, my dad usually goes, but they, because someone has to stay at the safety
Oh,
station.
gotcha. That
So he
makes sense.
usually goes out.
Gotcha. So tag teams like that. So when you say it was like 30 degrees that year, is it were you suggesting that it was like too warm for them?
Oh, yeah, that's
No
really
fair.
warm.
Wow. What kind are these all like kind of your standard sled dog breeds that we're looking at?
So there's actually a difference when it comes to like race dogs and then like sled dogs. Like the sled dogs you see like in Alaska and stuff, they're not made for like races. They're made to pull like heavy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're a work dog. And then like race dogs, they're on the smaller side, but they're fast. So people see them and they're like, oh, they're malnourished. I'm like, that's how big they get. They're a
Yeah.
different breed.
Yeah. You mentioned that the Can-Am is a qualifier for the Iditarod, which
Yes.
I'm actually surprised that you say it's 250 miles because the
Yeah.
Iditarod is
1,000.
almost yeah
It's 1,000 miles. Yeah.
yeah it's significantly longer. How long does it take for let's say your average racer to complete 250 miles?
3 days.
3 days. Okay. And have we had qualifiers from Maine, or it's not necessarily Maine people who
Oh no, people
participate?
come as far as Ohio, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they come from all over.
Yeah. And how many participants do you usually have?
So this year was a big race. I think we had like 28 in the 30, like 15 in the 100, and then 15-ish in the 250 at start. But some
Yeah.
people did decide to scratch.
What does scratch mean?
That just means that they're done.
Oh.
They forfeit.
Oh, gotcha. So, forfeiting meaning they like started and then they just didn't complete it, or?
Yep. Or some people scratched before
Mm,
the race even started. They just said they weren't coming.
gotcha. And do you know anything about the winners of this year?
I don't know anything about the 30 or the 100. I do know that the 250 was Denny, and he's won it, I think, a couple of times. And what's really funny is it's Denny, Andre, and Martin are usually the top three that they're like
Just every year.
every year, they're just like right behind each other. And this year, Martin actually ran in the Iditarod and did fairly well.
Do you know what place he had?
I think it was 20, which is
Okay.
not bad.
Yeah.
He started in 6th.
Wow. Do you know how many participated in the Iditarod?
Oh, it's probably like 60 or so.
Oh, wow. That's actually a lot more than I expected. I
Yeah.
don't know what I was expecting, but that's quite a number of people who race dogs for a significant portion of their time, I guess. I don't know if it's their like overall like that's their job, probably.
A
Yeah.
lot of our mushers, that's their job.
Mm. What is the most like challenging part of being part of a search and rescue team?
I think the most challenging part for us is travel, just because
Mm.
we live 5 hours away. And
Mm.
then in between safety stations, like, because we go from Wallagrass, Maine to Ashland, which is like an hour, and then back, and then bad weather. So I think that's the most challenging part, just getting there on time,
Mhm.
which we do.
Mhm. Yeah.
But a lot of people want me to say, staying out 27 miles into the woods overnight, but it's awesome.
I was gonna say, does anybody have to search and rescue you guys at any point?
Yeah.
Oh no, we're good.
You guys are good.
Yep.
And so when you guys started doing this in 2015, was it
Yeah.
2015, 20? Okay. Your dad was like, "Hey, come do it with me, or did you sign on later?
Nope. So he came home from work and was like, "Hey, I signed us up. We're going first weekend of March." I'm like,
No
"Awesome."
choice. No choice.
And had you done search and rescues in other kind of
Nope.
places or settings?
We've never
Okay.
done anything like this before.
Wow. What are the qualifications then for being on a search and rescue team?
So there's actually no qualification. It is all volunteer base,
Hmm.
literally everything. I mean, is it nice to have CPR and first aid
Hmm.
certification? Like, yes, which I am. So, but you don't just sign up and then they send you into the woods.
Hmm.
They have like a little rundown of what's going on, the rules, and all this. So it is volunteer, but it's structured.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess you're not. You don't have to. I don't know, when Bernie had mentioned, oh, search and rescue, I was thinking of, oh, is she going into the mountains with like a helicopter, anything
Yeah.
like that? This is much more low key, and it's
Yeah.
within kind of a specific setting. You know where everybody is supposed to be. I'm assuming they're all following the same trail. Is that
Yes. All the
that makes
trails
sense?
marked very well.
Hmm. Hmm. So the situation that you had mentioned about the woman who, so she's no longer allowed to participate in the race.
No,
Um,
because you can't scratch at a safety station. You can only scratch at a checkpoint. And
oh,
it happened 2 years in a row that she wanted to scratch at our specific safety station.
oh,
Mm.
interesting. But so that's after she was rescued.
Yeah, it
So
was the
basically,
next year it happened
I see. What would her
again.
alternative have been?
Well, she would have either had to gone back to Portage, which
Mhm.
was the checkpoint she came from, or go to Rocky Brook, which was the checkpoint like after us,
Okay. So,
which is like another 18 miles from our safety station.
and she would have had to do that with or without her dogs.
With, I mean, but we ended up because the dogs were so not okay, we
Yeah.
pulled them out.
Yeah. Interesting. Have you have you had any other rescues that were kind of like that or different?
Nope, everyone's been so good. And like, because we, like, a majority of the time we're up there, we are with the 250-mile
Mm,
racers. They're experienced, they know what
mm,
they're doing.
yeah.
They don't really need our help.
Yeah. And then for those smaller races, you said there's no safety stations, or is
So
there
there's no
just
checkpoints for the 30
okay,
mile
okay.
and out, but
Gotcha.
there is safety stations.
Gotcha. And you man those as well, or just
The
some of
safety
them?
station,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Mm-hmm. And you never had to rescue anybody in those smaller races?
No.
No.
We've had to
Oh,
like go out and check on them because like
mhm.
they're falling behind, but they're good.
Yeah. What is the coldest that you've been, as far as a race goes, that you've experienced?
I think it was negative 26,
Mm,
Mm.
mm. And do you have
but
to stay there all night?
yeah, but
Mm.
we have a shelter. I had it 101 degrees in there with a wood stove. People don't believe me when I say that, but I had it really warm.
Mhm.
And so when I'm assuming that the 100-mile is also, is that like 1 or 2 days or so
Yeah,
that
it's
it
2 days
takes?
with one checkpoint.
Okay. And so for both of those overnight ones, the teams, they probably have some kind of shelter, but their dogs have to sleep outside, right?
Well, so when they're racing at night, they're just racing.
Oh,
Like
they just keep
they
going.
just keep going. The only time they
Oh.
stop is sometimes to feed their dogs on the trail or water them,
Hmm.
but they only sleep like at a checkpoint,
Hmm.
and there's no shelter for the dogs, but they're provided with hay for
Hmm.
the dogs to like sleep on. And then
Hmm.
some of the checkpoints do have like things you can go into and get food for the
Hmm.
mushers. So
Hmm. Because Bernie, you were looking at
Yeah.
the Iditarod this year about that kind of.
Right, that was a big issue there. I guess three of the teams sheltered their dogs in some kind of a shelter, and then they were fined because they said they would give them an unfair advantage. But I would think the safety of the animal is important. So all the animal cruelty people are really getting, this only happened like a week ago or less, are really getting on them for that. So what's your take on that, Kaitlyn?
I don't see it as animal cruelty not having shelter for your dogs because they're used to that.
Yeah.
They have so much fur. They're used to the cold. They like the cold. I do think it's an unfair advantage for some people to have shelter and some to not have shelter. So I do understand where they're coming from with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess those dogs are pretty tough, so that's, yeah, they're not
Oh,
being
yeah.
cruel to them. I know it's important that the dog actually wants to do that. I've watched other races before like that on TV, not live in person. And if the dog didn't feel like racing, they would stop or replace it or something
Right.
like that. So they really want to do it, and they probably want to stay out at night too, even during a storm. And it was a big storm, I guess, at the Iditarod. The winner, Brent Sass, he said he fell off his sled and couldn't see anything for a while. But and he had won the Yukon Quest, but this is the first time he won the Iditarod. So those are some pretty serious racers up there.
About the Iditarod, I think I read that it's a 1,100-mile race. It happened earlier in March, actually March 6th, and I was actually pretty astounded looking at some of the race times. So the earliest race was, I don't know if it goes back earlier than this, but the earliest data point I saw was 1973. And it took the guy 20 days and 49 minutes to get through the whole thing. And that was the first place winner. And then this year, do you have Brent's numbers, Bernie, as far as how long it took him?
No, I don't know. I'm assuming it was faster than that.
8 days and 14 minutes.
Oh, almost
So
three
that's,
times faster.
yeah.
He was flying along there.
Yeah.
Maybe he had flying dogs instead of running dogs.
But the fastest was actually last year. Dallas Seavey did the race in 7 days and 14 minutes. So when you're talking, the 250 miles at 3 days ish, that's insane.
Yeah, it's four
That's
times.
almost,
Yeah.
like the distance is almost not quite 4 times,
Yeah.
but the time was like
Only like twice.
only twice. That's
Yeah.
crazy. But he came in. You said the person who came in this year from Maine came in 6th, right? Or 20th. That was a.
Oh, he's from Canada,
Oh, it was from
but
Canada.
he won like 10 times.
Gotcha. Quick question. So it's called the Can-Am race. Does it straddle the borders? Does it go across?
No,
Oh, it
it
doesn't.
stands for Canadian American.
Oh, but it doesn't. It just stays in Maine.
No, it stays in northern Maine.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I figured it would out. And you talked a little bit about the types of dogs. So I know you mentioned like there are these sled dogs who are probably a little bigger, and they're like kind of bred to carry and pull weight. And then there's kind of the race dogs, which are smaller and they're really meant for running. Do you have a sense of kind of the top speed of these teams and what the general makeup is that teams try to strive for? I assume you want like a mix of both because they are carrying something.
Yeah, so I think the fastest team that's ever run was like 12 miles an hour, and that was Martin's team.
Mm.
But they all pretty much run anywhere between 8 and 10 mile an hour. But it all depends on weather too. Like we had teams, because it was warm again this year, we had teams running at like 5 miles an hour during the day because it was warm.
Oh. Wow, so they probably want to rest during the day if they do rest, and then
Yeah,
and just run through the night.
that's what a lot of them plan.
Gotcha. Interesting.
What do they have for lights? How can they even see anything?
So I have no idea what like they buy, but you can see that thing coming for miles because they have like a headlamp, and all of the like 100 and 250 race mushers have like a blue flashing light on the back of them because they say that when snowmobilers see blue flashing lights, they go the other way.
Mm.
So they all have blue flashing lights so everyone else can see them. But that headlamp they use, I need one of those because it is so bright.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And then do you have a sense of kind of the like the number of, say, race dogs you want to have versus the number of like sled dogs? Is there kind of a magic formula that the teams like to strive for?
I don't know if there's a magic formula per se, but I do know that they put like their lead dogs are the smaller dogs, and they put like the bigger dogs closer to the sled because they're pulling more weight, and the lead dogs are just leading, and the ones in the middle are kind of like in between.
Yeah, yeah. What do you find the most kind of fun out of this work?
It's all fun,
Yeah.
but the funnest thing I think is just seeing all the mushers out there and them thanking us for being there, and just seeing how excited they are to see us come back each year.
Yeah.
Because we have the Mushers Meeting, which happens Friday night, and it's just every mushers there. They talk about the race, and it's just so fun to see everyone's like faces from year to year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if somebody were to want to go up and experience the race themselves, not necessarily to race in it, what would you recommend they kind of prep for?
Just come up.
Just show
You
up.
can come up. So they do take off Main Street. You can come down and watch them take off from Main Street.
Okay.
They did put out a video on their Facebook this year about the race, so that was cool to watch. But yeah, just come down. Even if you wanted to view it not from Main Street and come out to a safety station, just come down and talk to
you
someone.
would go to a safety station and
Oh yeah,
see it from
it's
there?
open to everyone.
What about like the checkpoints? You could also do that, or no?
There's only certain checkpoints are
Gotcha.
open to the public.
Gotcha.
But I don't know which ones those are. I think Portage is for sure.
Okay.
But you can
Awesome.
always message them on Facebook too if you have any questions.
That's awesome. I need to put that on my list. Is it in March or February or
It's always the first weekend in March.
first weekend in March? So it's like basically when the Iditarod is also happening.
Yep.
Gotcha. And so this is like a qualifier for next year,
Yeah.
essentially. Awesome.
Is it getting more popular, dog sledding, racing in general, or?
I would say so. We see more and more teams each year.
Yeah, and more spectators too, or?
Oh yeah. I think this year we had like 1,000, they said, just
Oh,
on the main
bad.
street.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
To put that on the calendar for next year. That'll be
Right?
fun.
It's so pretty up there too.
Yeah. I bet you probably have very, very clear dark skies.
Oh yes.
Well, thank you so much, Kaitlyn, for joining us and sharing about your experience with search and rescue over at the Can-Am races up in Fort Kent.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to Scientifically Speaking here on WMPG with myself, Bernie, and Kaitlyn. Stay tuned for Something for the Weekend with Anela, and for my favorite nerds, just a reminder to vaccinate,